Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shaw was a little confused. He would be jealous if the gap was similar, but would only envy if the gap was too big. He didn't look down on Ron. He was just too different from him. Sure, sit down. Do you have any questions about transfiguration? That you know what, Shaw actually had some questions about transfiguration to ask. Professor, I've read a lot of books about animagus, and I'm confused why I can't transform into magical creatures. McGregor was stunned. Your learning progress has reached this point. This is something that only happens in the 6th and 7th grades. Then the professor became serious again. Sure, although I believe you have reached the point of learning animagus, I want to warn you that you must not try to practice privately. Shaw said sincerely. Professor, don't worry. I won't try it without a clear understanding and full preparation. It's still the same question as before, why can't wizards transform into the animagus of magical animals? McGregor looked at Shaw's expression carefully, but couldn't see the reason, but still explained carefully. This involves the difference between ordinary creatures and magical creatures, and the difference between wizards with magic and magical creatures with magic. Next, Mag explained the differences between the three in detail. If he explained it in detail, it would take several thousand words. Simply put, it is the difficulty of biological simulation construction that produces magic, and the difficulty of conversion between different magic. In history, many transformation masters have tried to transform into magical animals, but most of them failed due to inadequate magic simulation conversion, and became half-human, half-animal monsters. However, these people still found a practical suggestion, that is, animal magic. Affinity and body magic. In fact, the magic contained in large magical animals, such as dragons and phoenixes, giants and monsters, is very high, even dozens of times higher than ordinary people, but because of their wisdom, they cannot reasonably use their own magic, which is why they are enslaved by humans, and many great wizards are restricted by the shackles of the body and cannot be promoted to legends. After all, the upper limit of magic cannot break through the limit of human beings, so these people have made many magical transformations of the human body. The most famous one is Salazar Slytherin. When Shaw heard this, his heart moved. The reason why the noseless old Voldemort became half snake and half human was probably similar. He only had the magical skill of soul-sucking, but was also limited by his physical fitness. Seeing Shaw in deep thought, Mag warned him again. I tell you this not to let you try, but to tell you how difficult and dangerous it is. Shaw immediately became a good student and learned. Don't worry, Professor, I will never try it. Mag has been teaching for many years and knows how strong the curiosity and thirst for knowledge of these little wizards are. The more talented they are, the more so. After thinking about it, he stood up. Sit here for a while, I'll find you some books. Shaw's eyes lit up. He was still hesitant about how to get Mag out of the way. He didn't want to wait for the two idiots over there to finish their confinement. Thank you, Professor. When McGonagall went to the small study in the compartment to look for books, Shaw stood up and went to the two little wizards buried in the papers. Neville. Shaw did not go directly to Ron. It was more appropriate for such a thoughtful little brat to give him a warning first and then scare himself to death. Neville had not yet evolved into a sword master, so he was startled like a little animal, and then looked up blankly. Deputy Dean. Shaw glanced at Ron, who was even more guilty, and gave Neville a reassuring smile. Don't be nervous, I'll ask you a question. Neville stuttered. You ask. Are you jealous of me? Jealous of my glory and prestige, jealous of my strength. Neville was stunned. I'm not jealous of the Deputy Dean. Then do you envy me? Yes, a little. Then are you jealous of Harry? Neville is an honest child. He answered questions quickly and said almost all of his true thoughts. But when asked about Harry, he was silent. Shaw understood and patted Neville on the shoulder. Don't feel ashamed. Jealousy is human nature. It's better to say it out loud than to hide it in your heart. Only those who dare to face their own darkness are true warriors. Shaw said this and saw that Ron, who was looking down, had begun to shake violently, and many beads of sweat dripped on the test paper. He didn't pay much attention to it and still looked at Neville steadily. Like me, although I seem to be stronger than ordinary little wizards, I am also jealous of big figures like the headmaster. This is not something difficult to talk about. Neville looked at Shore in disbelief, his lips closed several times, and he stood up suddenly and said with courage. Yes, I'm jealous, Harry, I'm jealous of his talent, jealous of him having a friend like you, but actually, I hate myself for being so stupid. This time Neville didn't stutter, and he spoke more and more fluently. Shore was quite relieved. He really liked Neville, but he was too busy recently, and he couldn't take care of Neville's affairs. Today, he tried to enlighten him. Neville, you are really brave. Neville was a little embarrassed, secretly reaching out to rub his knees. He just stood too hard and hit his knees on the seat. Yes, is it? But Grandma always said that I was cowardly, and I felt that my heart was really dirty. I was jealous of Harry, he helped me a lot. Shore said earnestly. Neville, don't blame yourself, everyone has jealousy. The low-level logic of jealousy, to put it bluntly, is people's dissatisfaction with their current situation and lack of confidence in changing themselves. But I see that you are trying to change yourself in you, even if it is slow, it is still worthy of praise, so you are excellent. Neville was stunned, and his eyes became more and more energetic. Affirmation from outstanding people of the same age is often more effective than affirmation from elders, Shore continued to enlighten. There are 3 types of jealous people. Smart jealous people often see their own shortcomings and try to change themselves. Neville, you are one of them. Mediocre jealous people only say what's the big deal, isn't it this, isn't it that? And stupid jealous people either frame the jealous people, or do crazy things to show their extraordinariness. Ha, Ron, do you think you are that kind? Shore said, and suddenly turned his head to look at Ron, who was peeking at him. This sudden question scared Ron and made him fall off the stool. He was sweating all over his head, and he loudly denied the rumor. I'm not jealous of you, I'm not jealous of you, I don't want to be in the limelight, I didn't mean to go to the 4th floor. Shore leaned over and looked down at Ron, and looked into his panicked eyes. Ron Weasley, I know you, you have 5 excellent brothers above you, and a sister who is loved by the whole family below you. You have been a little transparent since you were a child, and your family is really not rich. Growing up in such a living environment, it is indeed easy to understand that you have some dark thoughts. But you are a Gryffindor, what about your courage? Is it difficult to admit your weaknesses? Look at Neville, his family environment is even worse, and his parents are still lying in St. Mungo's. He is much braver than you. Looking at Ron, who was getting more and more cowardly, if it wasn't for the mission, Shaw wouldn't want to be a babysitter and counsel people all day long. His voice became colder and he shouted louder. Stand up, don't let me look down on you. Chapter 82. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Facing Shaw's stare, Ron was very scared, the most scared he had ever been, and even his whole body was cold. In a trance, he seemed to see a giant snake with a crown and 2 horns behind Shaw. This shadow might become his nightmare in the future, and Shaw's every word burned back and forth in his heart like a branding iron, so painful and uncomfortable. Is he really a dirty person? His whole family is sunny, is he the only one living in the shadow? Ron's body was cold and he had difficulty breathing. He mustered up the courage to refute Shaw several times that he was not a coward. But. Ding, complete the Conquer Hogwarts, 2nd ring, task, reward, 100 level 2 faith points, 1 legendary points. Ding, release, Conquer Hogwarts, 3rd ring, become the only director of Hogwarts, a great king, how can you share power with others? Kick all other directors out of the board seat one by one. Task reward, 200 level 2 faith points, 1 legendary points. Shore suddenly heard the system prompt, and his mouth hooked. When he saw the 3-ring system task, his mouth twitched again, a system that loves to pretend to be AC. Shore no longer forced Ron. He was not so idle, so he could only hope that the other party would realize it by himself. The loud drum does not need a heavy hammer. If it is really mud, it is better to give up. Shore turned his head and saw Neville still looking at him stupidly, with a few traces of fear in his eyes, and reached out to rub his round head. Neville, your potential has not yet been stimulated. If you study hard with Harry in the future, you will have a bright future. Shore gave Neville some chicken soup, then returned to the sofa and sat down. While waiting for Professor McGonagall, he opened the system and started to think. Host, Shaw, occupation, wizard/poker magician/king of the magic throne. Magic power, 140, 100 for adults. Talent, lightning element affinity max water element affinity level 2. Parseltongue level 2, dark magic 8, Azkaban, transfiguration 5, gifted, white magic 3, potions 3, decent talent, expand, talent points, 1, legend points, 1, skills, brain occlusion max. Exclusive magic, lightning sword level 5, lightning floating ring level 1, dark magic, soul sucking level 5, obtained by lottery, killing curse level 4, improved after a lot of practice, fiendish fire curse level 2, Voldemort's notes, white magic, water prison level 5, disarming curse level 5, birds flock level 5, iron armor curse level 4, level 1 faith, 230. / level 2 faith, 189. / level 3 faith, 5, lottery, 1000/100/10, fanatics, Theodore Knott, Alice Foley, Hermione Granger, Creche, Copper Spoon, mission, seize the Savior's reputation, first ring, reward, 10,000 level 1 faith points, 1 legendary point, conquer Hogwarts, third ring, reward, 200 level 2 faith points, 1 legendary point, inherit the witch party, reward, 300 level 2 faith points, 1 legendary point. The second level faith value can be drawn once, so let's talk about it when it's urgently needed. As for what to add to the legendary value, Shaw was a little hesitant. The water prison technique is very useful, but it is a little weak in killing. The level 5 lightning sword is the result of his improvement of the lightning blade in the past month. He has a max affinity for the lightning element. If he wants to break through the upper limit of level 5, he roughly estimates that it will take him a year and a half to realize it by himself, at most 2.5 years, which means that he can do it in the 3rd grade, but this requires calculating the time cost. The breakthrough of the lightning sword can be polished with time, but it is not conducive to the implementation of his recent plans. If he adds some water prison techniques, I don't know whether level 5 and level 6 are qualitative breakthroughs, and whether he can fight against the remnant soul of Voldemort. Confusing, waiting online, very anxious. After a while, Professor McGonagall brought 2 tattered books. These are 2 books about the failure records of Animagus, which contain many failed cases and experiences. Shaw was full of black lines and his hands trembled. Other professors give students books on successful cases. What is Big Cat doing? Is he so unreliable? Is there an evil spirit between his eyebrows? He is also very careful about his life, okay? However, Shaw still showed gratitude on his face. Thank you, Professor, I will read it carefully. Professor McGonagall was relieved to see Shaw's calm attitude, and explained Animagus in detail. No more water, please understand the popular science in the comments. Before Shaw left, he repeatedly reminded her that if he wanted to perform Animagus, he must notify her so that she could guard him. Professor McGonagall became McGonagall. Ron is really qualified. After Shaw left, Professor McGonagall couldn't help but frown, but there was no more appropriate way. After turning around, she found that the 2 students who were confined to the sea of questions were different. Neville was in very good spirits, and his temperament was less honest and straightforward. He was concentrating on doing the exercises. Ron, on the other hand, had a blank look in his eyes, and the pen in his hand didn't move, as if he had lost his soul. McGonagall's heart was like ice and fire, with relief and hatred intertwined. She pursed her lips, walked over and waved her hand in front of Ron. Why are you in a daze? You are not allowed to go back to the dormitory if you don't finish it. Stay up until dawn. When it comes to staying up late, cats never lose. Shore came outside. It was almost 10 o'clock now. He didn't have the habit of going out at night, so he went to the Slytherin lounge. Halfway through the journey, he suddenly heard a noise around the corner. Shaw cast the disillusionment charm and walked over lightly. In an abandoned corridor, Snape was beating Quirrell against the wall. Snape was full of cold and domineering aura, and his voice was low and indifferent. This matter should not be made public. Have you figured out how to get through the stupid dog raised by Hagrid, that idiot? Quirrell shrank like a little bottom and stammered. Snape, no, I don't know what you are talking about. You don't want to be my enemy, Quirrell. I don't. Snape approached Quirrell a little closer. Oh, your little tricks can't fool me at all. I really, no. Give you some time to think about it. I hope you know who to be loyal to. At this moment, an owl suddenly flew past the window. Snape gave a final warning, then withdrew his hand from the wall, lifted his sleeves, and left in a black robe. Quirrell stopped trembling immediately after Snape disappeared, and his eyes became cold and evil. He straightened his wrinkled robes and stayed there for a while, as if he was talking to Voldemort. Quirrell's eyes flashed with a trace of entanglement, and he sighed and left. Shaw watched the show with great interest. It was a duel between two drama queens. Their acting skills were great. He really wanted to give them a little golden man. He also calculated in his mind that Quirrell was probably already in contact with Hagrid. It wouldn't be long before he could use the dragon egg to exchange for the trick to pass the three-headed dog from Hagrid. In the previous plot, after Quirrell got the secret, he had been waiting for Dumbledore to leave school. He didn't have to wait until the end of the holiday. He didn't know that Dumbledore used the Mirror of Eris to defend at the end of the level, otherwise it would be too unreasonable, and now, Dumbledore is not in school every other day, which is like the back door is wide open, and only Snape is watching, so time is a bit tight. Shaw gritted his teeth and turned to the 8th floor regardless. After entering the exclusive spell practice room of the Room of Requirement, Shaw added a point of legendary value to the lightning sword without saying a word. Level 6 lightning sword. Achieved. Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Instantly, Shao-Er's perception of the world changed greatly. Although he had a max affinity with the lightning element before, that was passive, and the lightning elements in the air actively had an affinity with him. His own control over these elements was basically zero. Even if he had a lightning spell, the main body of the spell still had to rely on his own magic power, and the lightning element was passively added. But now, it is still unknown how powerful the level 6 lightning sword is. But Shao-Er could already vaguely feel the free lightning elements in the air, as if he could actively communicate with the lightning elements. Shao-Er reached out to the empty sky, and with his mind, those invisible lightning elements began to jump and swirl around his palm. Shao-Er's handsome eyebrows were full of joy, and he quickly drew out his magic wand. With National Collapse in hand, the wand body kept shaking, and spewed a lot of purple electric sparks. Shao-Er could clearly feel the other party's excitement and kept urging him to use it quickly. Shao-Er smiled, poured in his magic power, and used the lightning sword. As Shao-Er's magic power was activated, a purple magic power quickly wrapped around the magic wand. This time was different from the past. A purple light energy condensed from the air beside the magic wand, and flowed into the gradually formed lightning sword like a stream. If Shao-Er needed 10 scales of magic power to initially shape the lightning sword in the past, now he only needs 6 to 7 scales, and the other 1/3 can be borrowed from the heaven and earth. Moreover, the condensed lightning sword is more tenacious and sharp, and the complex runes on the sword are more mysterious. The flow of purple light is like a halo. Like a weapon used by gods, magnificent and dazzling. Nirvana. Shao-Er shouted a powerful slogan and slashed the lightning sword forward. A 3-meter purple lightsaber shot out like a sword, with dazzling purple light and unparalleled momentum, splitting the heavy stone wall not far away in half. The long lightning sword energy penetrated the stone wall as easily as cutting tofu. The half of the stone wall fell to the ground along the smooth cross-section and broke into several pieces. After the sword light passed, it directly hit the wall of the House of Requests, and the whole house shook violently. Countless runes appeared and flashed on the wall, and a large amount of magic power gathered from the castle, dissolving the power of the sword light and repairing the damage to the wall. Shaw was a little dumbfounded. He didn't have time to continue to test how many elements in the world could be attracted when he continued to test the large-scale lightning net. he quickly put away the lightning sword and walked quickly outside the House of Requests. This time, the test spell was wasted. The school has an owner. At least Dumbledore, who has the authority of the principal, can feel all the big movements in Hogwarts Castle. He was afraid of being caught for doing such damage. What Shaw didn't know was that he was lucky today. Oldby was not in school. After hastily fleeing the scene and returning to the dormitory, Shawer was slightly relieved. If he was not caught on the scene, it would not be his responsibility, but he immediately became excited again, his eyes full of excitement. Level 6 skill, so terrifying. Not only does it consume less, but the power has really changed qualitatively. Just now, he just hit it casually, and it had such an effect. If he was given some time, he would slowly attract the elements of heaven and earth to merge. TSK. After calming down, Shawer frowned again, thinking something was wrong. By the way, it is impossible to increase the power of magic spells infinitely, otherwise he would dare to attack the principal's office now. There are two very intuitive limitations here. 1. The problem of magic output and the efficiency of attracting the elements of heaven and earth. 2. Shawer's problem of controlling the upper limit of magic power. Fighting on the battlefield is a race against time. No one will hold back a big move for the opponent. The spell must be completed in the few seconds of activation, and the stronger the spell is, the harder it is to control. Just like taking care of kindergarten children, taking care of 1 is easy, taking care of 10, you can handle it, taking care of 100. I guess he just wants to die on the spot, but Shaw is already very satisfied, probably relying on a level 6 lightning sword and his full level lightning element affinity. In the use of lightning spells, the natural control and conversion rate are higher than the upper limit of ordinary people. Opponents below the legendary level can basically be dealt with, at least to an undefeated level, after more practice. It is not a big problem to beat the residual soul of Voldemort. Draco has been teaching Goyle and Crabbe the petrification spell in the corner, watching Shaw start his daily face-changing behavior of sitting in a daze again. Draco still feels distressed. Shore is still under too much pressure, and he is a little mentally ill. Alas, it's my fault that I am useless and can't share his burden. After Draco hated himself for not fighting, he turned around and continued to train the two followers fiercely. If you don't learn this spell tonight, you won't be allowed to sleep. Shore came out of his deep thoughts. When he came back to his senses, he heard Draco scolding the two idiots in a low voice. He smiled and ignored it. Draco was much more patient now. He took out a notebook from his ring and ticked a small goal on it, then he started writing and drawing. Plans are always not as fast as changes, and they need to be adjusted constantly. In recent days, the little snakes in Slytherin found that the chief was always elusive, except for seeing him in class. Even Draco and Alice, who were close friends, didn't know where Shaw was. They only knew that Shaw often went to the Forbidden Forest, but they didn't know what he was doing. Theodore knew a little, but no one could get any information out of this taciturn guy, and the whole Hogwarts has become very different. If a graduated student came back to visit the school, he might think he was in the wrong place. In the corridor, everyone became polite and nodded to each other when they met. Except for the Gryffindor boys who all gave a stiff chivalric salute, everyone else gave a normal gentleman and lady salute. Some knowledgeable professors said that the students' etiquette was no less than that of Beauxbatons School of Magic in France. During the meal, the lively scene of eating together was no less lively than before, but it had a different kind of beauty. Well, it was a bit funny because many students were still not used to using chopsticks, and chopsticks often caused injuries. Moreover, the food here was so fragrant that Hagrid, who had been eating in his own cabin all year round, came to the hall to eat. In the classroom, everyone rushed to answer questions for academic points, and even the Badgers were no longer pretending to be invisible. For the sake of delicious food, they were more motivated than the top students in Ravenclaw. The professors were very surprised. Although the Badgers always got the answers wrong, they were always very happy and always gave them 1 or 2 points to comfort and encourage them. McGonagall, the vice president, was very happy to see all these changes and felt that she must be the greatest vice president in the history of Hogwarts. Alas, there is no perfect thing in the world. After Shaw abolished the electrical therapy, the twins, who were the biggest deductors, showed a tendency to revive. McGonagall was determined to win the College Cup this year. There are still 3 weeks of Quidditch coming up soon, and this year's Quidditch Cup is also very promising. because Harry's recent training has been very effective, which gives her hope, and because of Shaw's existence. Slytherin probably doesn't dare to do anything dirty in Quidditch now, McGonagall said to herself. I have to talk to Shaw later and find a way to make the twins continue to be honest. Time flies, 2 weeks have passed, and Halloween is only 2 days away. Shaw, who had been missing for 3 weeks, suddenly asked Alice to gather 4 throne subordinates to gather in the throne room of the Room of Requirement tonight. Some book friends always ask if there is a fan group. Tomato does not allow it. The group is very messy and involves some bad things. After all, there are many students among the readers, and the author group has banned several of them. If you want to ask June Tong for plot opinions, you can ask in the book circle, or add the DY account. The account is the same as the author's pen name. Don't be shy to June Tong. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hermione was very excited today. She had held the sequence poker for more than a month, and finally she could attend the throne meeting. When she came to the magical room of requirement, she was even more excited. The solemnity of the pentagram hall, the 52 gorgeous seats, and the lofty black and gold throne, all of this stimulated Hermione's heart. She felt the blood in her veins surging. She clenched her fists several times to prevent herself from screaming out of control. Hermione, you are in the 10th seat in the upper right wind zone. This is exclusive to Ravenclaw. On the side, Draco introduced Hermione in a neutral tone. He was a little indignant in his heart. Why was he 10 of spades and Hermione also 10 of clubs? In addition, Theodore was still 9 of spades, and the brother felt the pressure. Hermione knew Draco's arrogant personality a long time ago and didn't care. Shaw told her that as long as the age of these boys in the school was reduced by 3 years, it would be easy to understand. Hermione came to her exclusive seat, first tidied up her carefully selected blue and white dress, took a deep breath, and then solemnly sat on her gorgeous seat. Her back was pressed against the soft and comfortable back of the chair, feeling both honored and heavy on her shoulders. This is responsibility. She glanced at the throne of a higher order next to her, and saw Alice, who was sitting on a higher order throne in the corner. Hermione told herself in her heart, Hermione Granger, you are not bad, you are the best. After Alice and others sat in their seats one by one, everyone waited with a serious expression. A few minutes later, Shaw, dressed in a black and purple robe, slowly walked out of the back hall and walked up to the throne step by step. Alice and others found that the chief was a little different today. Although his smile was as warm as always, the murderous aura on his body was very strong, and a flash of electric arc flashed around him from time to time. After Shaw sat down, he first glanced at Hermione, who was alone in the upper right wind area, and then calmly said to his 4 subordinates. Although the throne is still weak, it has also added new members. We are growing stronger. Shaw waved his hand to stop his subordinates from standing up to show their loyalty, and then said, Halloween is coming, and an important plan of mine needs to be completed on this day. So today I called everyone together to give you some tasks to cooperate with my plan. This is also the first action of the throne. At this point, Shaw's warm smile turned cold. He stood up and flicked his purple-black robe sleeves. Alice, listen to my orders. Alice immediately stood up, put one hand on her chest, and said with a firm look. I'm here. I've imprisoned hundreds of small animals at the edge of the Forbidden Forest. You organize the senior students and use transfiguration to turn them into portable decorations. On Halloween night, distribute them to the young wizards. Yes, Chief. Hermione. Hermione's blood rushed to her head, but she quickly imitated Alice's movements and shouted with one hand on her chest. I'm here. Contact Percy, Penelope, Cedric, and Montague, and ask them to organize the students not to panic and quickly retreat to, after something happens on Halloween night. After Shaw explained, Hermione wanted to ask why, but unconditional obedience to orders and instructions was the state that the throne's subordinates should be in. Yes, Chief. Shaw waved her hand to let her retreat, and then said, Theodore. Theodore immediately strode into the hall, knelt on one knee, and looked at the domineering chief on the stage with a fanatical expression. I'm here. Shaw was stunned, but he didn't care and continued to give orders. On Halloween, maybe, can you do it? Although Theodore was enthusiastic, he didn't agree immediately. He thought calmly and seriously for half a minute before he promised loudly. Chief, I guarantee with my life that I can complete it, Shore said after a slight pause. Your life is more important than the mission. Theodore's pale face did not change, but a hint of tenderness flashed in the madness in his eyes. Shore sighed and waved his hand. Okay, today's meeting ends here. As soon as Shaw finished speaking, Draco, who had been expecting it, immediately shouted in dissatisfaction. Chief, what about me, what about me? What about my mission? Shore was about to turn around and go to the back hall, but when he heard Draco's question, he turned his head and said. Mr. Malfoy, you can't even cast the shield charm properly. Just hide well on Halloween night. Draco. He wanted to say that Hermione was the same, but then he became uncertain. A creature like a top student cannot be judged by common sense. Draco has actually worked very hard during this period, but although he is talented, he can only say that he is good. It's not the best yet. Theodore passed by him lightly, his gait and appearance became more and more like the chief. Draco wanted to punch himself on the head. He didn't have Theodore's abnormal perseverance, sleeping only 4 hours a day. Alice walked behind Draco and patted his shoulder. Don't be discouraged, the chief is also for your own good. Alice said and walked away with a smile. Draco's ahog immediately turned into an S shape, indicating that he was very heartbroken. Hermione also passed by with her mouth covered. Draco was even more angry. His 10 of spades might not be fake. He thought about it and set off to find Harry. He was heartbroken and could only complain to his good friend. Shaw returned to a room in the back hall, which was decorated as a study and lounge. Shower sat down on a comfortable chair, and then he dozed off after leaning back. He was really tired these days. He subconsciously spread out the palm of his right hand, and a ball of purple light slowly gathered on it, and then turned into a sword shape, a net shape, a shield shape, and so on. Although Shower dozed off, he couldn't help but think about the plan in his mind. There were no loopholes in it. After all, there was no perfect plan. In fact, Shower didn't have to work so hard, as if he had become a slave to the system, and was born only to do tasks. But this feeling of being able to control strength and power is really an addiction. Without personal experience, it is really impossible to know the beauty of it. Just like a non-smoker, he doesn't know how ethereal a mouthful of nicotine will make people feel after a meal. Warning: children are not allowed to smoke. Shower didn't know how long he dozed off, and his palms suddenly felt a little hot. He opened his eyes suddenly and found that the sofa was accidentally burned by his lightning arc. He waved his hand to dispel the spell on his palm, and looked at his mechanical watch. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Shaw was a little hungry, so he left the room of requirement, cast the disillusionment charm and went to the kitchen. Kresh was not in Hogwarts, so he had to go to the kitchen himself. He sent his elf butler to deal with the affairs of the Muggle world. Albert's performance has been outstanding recently, but the capital chain is also extremely tight. Shaw had no choice but to continue selling some of the antiques without magic power, but he was almost out of stock. The layout of the Muggle world could not stop, and he was forced to rob. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In front of the kitchen door, Shaw scratched the pear on the painting, and with a few giggles, he entered the open kitchen door, but he found that there were still many people here. Judging from their clothes, they were all badgers. As expected, they are Hufflepuffs who eat 8 meals a day. Which 8 meals? For meals in the morning, noon, and evening snacks, 3 meals in 3 classes, and 1 meal on the way. The badgers were not just here for food, but to ask the elves how to cook Chinese food, which was naturally rejected. Some badgers were holding Chinese recipes that they didn't know where they got from, and were trying to imitate them in a corner, but they were confused about some of the words on it. For example, a pinch of salt, a little bit of sugar, appropriate vinegar, slow fire. Shore couldn't help but smile. It seems that the little badger is not satisfied with the little portion of Chinese food at the main meal and wants to be self-reliant. Cedric was originally patiently talking to the elf leader Tongxiao, when suddenly the elves in the room exploded. Tongxiao, who just looked old and couldn't speak clearly, immediately pushed him aside and walked quickly to the door. Ah, great Mr. Black, you come to see us humble elves again. Woo woo, the sir is here again, I am so happy that I want to cry. Cedric looked back and saw Shaw with a warm smile on his face shaking hands with the elves gathered around him, but he didn't say anything. Many doubts flashed through Cedric's mind. Among the entire wizarding community, the honest Hufflepuffs were the least discriminatory against house elves, but they had never been so courteous. After thousands of years of education, even the Badgers did not agree that elves and wizards could get along equally, but the scene in front of him had a certain impact on Cedric's worldview, based on his understanding of Shaw during this period of time. This powerful super genius seemed easygoing, but in fact he had a domineering personality. He didn't look like someone who believed in the equality of all beings. At this moment, Shaw became even more mysterious in Cedric's heart. Shaw was very experienced and waited for the elves to vent their emotions before speaking. Friends, please give me a bowl of bird's nest porridge and grilled squid, thank you. Then, more than a dozen elves fought in a group, competing to make supper for Shaw. In the end, it was Tong Xiao who designated 3 elves to calm the situation. This scene made the Badgers on the side stunned. They are all wizards, why are the elves' attitudes so different? In fact, to be precise, these elves treat other little wizards with respect, but if you experience it carefully, you will feel a sense of isolation. Shaw had naturally seen Cedric a long time ago, and smiled and waved to him and said hello, chatting casually about some interesting things about the recent changes in Hufflepuff. Shaw did not. There was no intention to have a deeper exchange. Although he wanted to recruit this outstanding little badger, he could learn the information himself, and the kind-hearted Cedric might not accept his ideas for a while. Hufflepuff, well, it is indeed a big head that needs to be fought for in the future, but there is no rush. This group is still suitable for boiling badgers in warm water. Half an hour later, Shaw left the kitchen with a food box amid a farewell. The little badgers immediately started discussing. Hey, Cedric, Shaw is still easy to talk to, these elves really admire him. Strange, he is kind-hearted and likes to play with food, so he should be Hufflepuff. We also have pure blood here, the Burns family and the Milan family. Maybe the Sorting Hat made a mistake. Cedric did not agree with his friend. My father is from the Department of Magical Creatures and Magical Care of the Ministry of Magic, so he still has some political wisdom. He always feels that Shaw is hiding something. Shaw returned to the Slytherin dormitory, seeing that Draco was a little depressed. Goyle and Crabbe dared not even breathe. After the meeting, Draco went to find Harry, but Harry now has to deal with his studies, participate in Quidditch training, and spend a lot of energy practicing spells, so he has no time to accompany Draco. So, Draco is a little autistic. Shaw waved and moved a table and chair to Draco. Draco still lowered his head and thought about his own things silently. Shaw smiled, and did not speak actively. After sitting down, he put the lunch box on the seat, took out the food and began to eat with his head down. Gudong. A slight swallowing sound sounded, and then Draco hurriedly said to hide his embarrassment. Can you go to the side to eat? Delicious. Ah, what did you just say? Shaw pretended not to hear and looked up at Draco. Draco felt like crying. I said I didn't say anything. Shaw said oh and continued to eat his supper. When Shaw was about to finish his supper, at midnight, Draco finally spoke. Shaw, am I really useless? It's okay. Shaw's perfunctory answer made Draco even more sad, and he began to give up on himself. What do you mean it's okay? I can't do spells as well as Theodore, even Harry, and I can't handle affairs as well as Alice and Hermione. I am a waste. After Draco finished speaking, he looked at Shaw expectantly, hoping that his best friend could comfort him. Shaw didn't say anything immediately. He drank the last mouthful of bird's nest, put down the small bowl, took out a napkin and wiped his mouth, and then asked. Didn't I ask you to make more friends? How are you doing? That when it came to this, Draco changed his depressed look and began to talk freely. Of course it's good. I asked my father to mail me a lot of good things. I would give one to anyone who I think has good potential, and then we would be good friends. Theodore asked me to teach etiquette in Ravenclaw. After I went there, I was very popular with those seniors, and I gave them a lot of things. Shaw choked. Although Draco's method seemed stupid, it was actually the real way to make friends, and it went straight to the essence. He quietly cleaned up the plates, stood up and patted Draco on the shoulder. Well done. A force naturally needs a diplomat. This is your position. Come on. Draco nodded his head vigorously. I know. I will do my best. I will write a letter to ask my father to send me more things. Then there was no conversation overnight, and the next 2 days passed quickly. Hogwarts does not have a Halloween holiday, but there are no classes in the afternoon. Shaw announced that there is no need to worry about etiquette today, so all the students who were crazy about it started to make trouble. Hogwarts is full of pumpkin lanterns, which are unusually large because Hagrid used the expansion spell. In addition to pumpkin lanterns, wall lamps are decorated in various bat shapes, and there are many horror elements filling the campus. Ghosts are also very active on this day. The students had a joyous afternoon, and time gradually came to the evening. In order to set off the atmosphere, the hall, which used to be brightly lit, had half of the thousands of floating candles today. When the students entered the hall, they were also given a bat brooch by the prefects of each grade. After everyone sat down, they waited for the Halloween dinner to start. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nurmengard, Austria. There is a cage on Grindelwald's desk. The cage is made of blue fierce fire and some alchemical mechanisms, and a purple bird resembling a phoenix is locked inside. The bird has beautiful purple feathers, with lightning flashing on the feathers, and 2 golden feathers on its head swaying gently, making it look extremely proud. In its narrow and sharp eyes, a pair of piercing pupils are purple and black. It also has long and beautiful tail feathers, and its purple-black claws are extremely sharp. It looks very much like a mutant phoenix or a smaller thunderbird, at least a close relative. Grindelwald adjusted his azure half-moon glasses with his hand and moved his head closer to the cage, with a scholarly temperament. Master, this bird is called the purple lightning kite by Nordic muggles. It is a mythical incarnation of the god of thunder. Although this magical creature cannot control lightning on a large scale like the thunderbird, its single lightning attack is stronger, and its flying speed is faster, almost comparable to teleportation. If it is used to send letters, it can go between Austria and England in 2 hours. Abernethy, who was standing by and bowed, reported truthfully, there were still a few unhealed burn scars on the face of the saint, but he did not say how much damage he suffered when catching the purple lightning kite. Grindelwald was stunned and remembered some secrets that only legendary wizards like them or high-ranking wizards in the magic world knew. Although the major pantheons in the world are all passed down or recorded by muggles, they are all deified, but the prototypes are all forces founded by powerful wizards, and the most recent pantheon that has declined is the Nordic Odin 1,000 years ago, and this Odin is a firm believer in pure blood supremacy. Just look at the relationship between the gods in his lineage, and you will know that almost all of them marry close relatives. Either marry a sister or marry a nephew, and the relationship is very messy. And Salazar Slytherin, the founder of Hogwarts, also went north to find this legendary wizard with similar ideas after leaving school. As a result, I don't know what the two had a conflict with, but they started fighting. In Norse mythology, the giant snake Jormungandr that has been attacking Agast is Salazar's pet. In addition, these two legendary wizards are madmen who love to do human and magical animal experiments. So there are various forms of werewolves and giants and other magical creatures in Norse mythology, which adds a lot of legends to this pantheon legend. Grindelwald asked casually after he came to his senses. This kind of bird must be the hybrid of Odin's arrogant pure-blood wizard. Haven't you encountered resistance from the pure-blooded descendants of the natives in Northern Europe? Abernethy stood straight and said enthusiastically. For the greater good, subordinates are not afraid of sacrifice. Grindelwald nodded to express his appreciation, and said nothing more. As long as the result is good, it's fine. He reached out to the fiendfire cage. Even if those blue fiendfires were not cast by Grindelwald himself, they were very obedient and opened a crack automatically. The purple lightning kite, which had been vigilant in the cage, pecked instantly, trying to make a bloody hole in Grindelwald's finger, but Grindelwald's palm was instantly covered with a layer of dark blue scales. He didn't care about the pecking and stroked the head of the purple lightning kite very accurately. Well, it's easy to pet. It's good as a pet. TSK. The purple lightning kite was very dissatisfied, and lightning arcs began to swirl all over its body. but the next moment, it was suppressed by the alchemical device in the blue fire cage. It could only stare at Grindelwald with fierce eyes. "Hey, little guy, don't be angry, I found a good master for you, you will thank me in the future." Grindelwald looked at this unruly bird, quite satisfied, turned around and ordered. "Next, tame it well, and make sure it's done before Christmas." After Abernethy took the purple lightning kite away, Grindelwald watched the sky outside getting darker and darker. The night wind gently blew on his old face, feeling a little cold. "Oh. By the way, tonight is Halloween, how can I spend it alone, it's too lonely." Grindelwald took out a coin with a function similar to a two-sided mirror and began to input magic. Then, he happily changed into a hospital gown and came to the fireplace to lie on the rocking chair and pretend to be a patient. Time goes back half an hour, Hogwarts is crowded with people now. Today is the day of relaxation, so except for Slytherin, the other 3 long tables are very lively, especially the Gryffindor who are crazy about staying up. In the teacher's seat, only the headmaster and the 4 deans came to the dinner. The headmaster just gave a brief opening speech, and everyone was happy. The headmaster praised McGonagall for his good management of the school from time to time, and he must increase his salary in the future. The hall was filled with fragrance, and the dining table of Hogwarts was completely occupied by oriental dishes, with the most popular steak and chicken sandwiches were not touched at all. The Badgers were the most enthusiastic in eating. They were not as lively as the Lions, but they ate the fastest. Cedric was always worried, always thinking of what the Ravenclaw girl Hermione had told him before. "Hey, Cedric, stop being in a daze, be careful that I will steal your mapo tofu." "Ah, don't move, it's all mine." That at the Lions' Dean's table, Harry still didn't make a fuss with the other little lions, and ate the dishes quietly. With good food at school and frequent Quidditch training, Harry has become stronger and is no longer as thin as before. Harry noticed from the corner of his eye that Ron's condition has not been right today. To be precise, he has been a little confused in the past half-month. He would suddenly wake up in the middle of the night, talking nonsense in his sleep, saying "Snake King, don't kill me." He also found that Neville was not as cowardly as before. Although he was still very shy, he was more motivated and took the initiative to ask him for advice every day. Harry glanced at Slytherin, who were still following the usual etiquette. It wasn't that Shaw didn't allow it, but the beautiful Alice gave them a sidelong glance, and the little snakes all behaved, and their prestige was established, and the idle Shaw sat in the first seat. Tonight, he didn't wear a school uniform with a green background and silver edges, but a slim black and purple hunting coat, which was very tough and handsome, even a bit domineering. On the Ravenclaw side, the young ladies who had mailed gifts to Shaw looked at Shaw from time to time, very boldly, and didn't care about other people's strange looks. They saw Shaw was actually eating a red pudding, and the faces of these girls changed. But some girls were more flirtatious, and looked eager to try. Shaw was scooping pudding with a spoon in one hand and playing with a coin in the other. The silver coin flipped and rolled on the back of his hand. This was a habit he used to regulate his mind when he was nervous. He hadn't played with coins for a while since he came to the magic world. He was really fascinated by this kind of jelly-like thing recently. It was smooth and tender, with a variety of flavors, and he never got tired of eating it. As for why it was red, it was intentional. He wanted to pick off some young ladies who had bad intentions towards him. He now received a bunch of love letters and gifts every day, which was really annoying. He could only confirm the legend of his violent devil. Alice had finished eating a long time ago. This time, she didn't make tea and wait for Shaw. Instead, she got up and communicated with some peripheral subordinates again to ensure that everything would be safe. Theodore in the corner didn't even eat. He looked solemn and kept wiping his white jade wand. Only Draco, after Shaw refused to teach him the cool trick of rolling coins on the back of his hand, gave up on himself and used food to fill his broken heart. Time passed by minute by minute. In the teacher's seat, Dumbledore suddenly looked sideways and pressed his hand on his chest. After sighing and speaking a few words to the air, a food box appeared out of thin air on the table. Dumbledore picked up the box, said a few words to McGonagall, winked at Snape, and left in a hurry. Shaw saw this and was delighted. His pen pal was awesome and gave him another wonderful assist. As expected, it happened that Dumbledore left not long after. The door of the hall was knocked open by someone. Quirrell looked terrified and staggered to the center of the field and said weakly, "Giant, monster, there is a giant monster, I thought you all knew." Then he pretended to be unconscious and fell to the ground professionally, making the ground bang. Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Quirrell brought the news of the troll, the hall was quiet for a while, and then it became noisy. There were many nervous and frightened little wizards. "Ah, troll! So scary. How could there be such a monster in Hogwarts? Mom, save me. What should we do?" "Yes, find a place to hide." Don't think that the troll is easy to deal with just because Harry and Ron can deal with it in the original book, but that is entirely due to the protagonist's halo. In a real confrontation, 3 or 5 ordinary adult wizards may not be able to do anything with the troll in a short time. Of course, elite aurors and perverted professors are not counted. For example, 3 or 5 big bats can be killed without a trace. Shaw was well prepared and winked at Theodore. Theodore immediately stood up, held the white jade wand in reverse, and strode out. His task tonight was to walk the troll away and prevent the professor who arrived later from finding it for at least half an hour. The task was difficult. Shaw was also glad that Dumbledore was distracted, and Theodore's mission was much easier. Alice had already started to arrange people to carry out the mission, and the outsiders had joined the crowd to organize the students. For a while, the hall was in chaos. Professor McGonagall stood up from behind the teacher's seat and said loudly, "Be quiet." Seeing that it didn't work, she had to add loud voice to herself. "Be quiet." The little wizards looked at Professor McGonagall blankly, and McGonagall was about to say something. Shaw took the lead and walked to the teacher's seat and said loudly, "Professor, there is no time to lose. You go catch the troll, and leave this to me." McGonagall was stunned, but nodded. Shaw's prestige in the student group may be more useful than the professor in some aspects. McGonagall quickly took Flitwick and Sprout to find the troll, and Snape had disappeared long ago. After McGonagall and the others left, those who had made arrangements in advance were able to let go. The chaos in the hall was quickly suppressed, and many senior prefects led students from their own colleges to the 4 sides of the hall, with one college in each direction. The young wizards were confused, and some wanted to disobey, but after hearing that it was Shaw's order, they dared not say anything. They consciously followed the prefects to their own square formations and stood in place, and Shaw was blocking Quirrell's way to the upstairs. He was calm and teased Quirrell, who looked anxious. "Professor, are you going back to your office? A professor who doesn't protect his students is not a good professor." Quirrell had planned to sneak out of the hall and go to the 4th floor to try to force his way into the 3-headed dog during the chaos. Quirrell was really poor now, and he really didn't want to spend a lot of money to buy dragon eggs to find Hagrid, that big fool, to exchange information. Unexpectedly, he was blocked by Shaw. Quirrell's expression turned cold, but he quickly returned to his timid look. Shower, I'm hurt, get out of the way, I want to go back and rest." Because the students hadn't set up a defensive formation yet, Shower could only patiently chat with Quirrell. "Professor, why are you stuttering again? Is it because there are so many people here?" Quirrell's eyes flashed with murderous intent, and he said in a low and fierce voice, "Shower, do you want to die? Do you know what you are doing? Get out of the way." Shower took out his wand and tapped it on his palm, continuing to talk nonsense. Quirrell, whether a person succeeds or fails in this life sometimes depends on only one choice, so you have to be cautious, and you have no choice." Quirrell's face changed drastically. "What do you mean? Do you know something?" Shower turned his head and took a look. The students were basically standing in a specific position, and there were 1 or 2 outstanding students who could perform the advanced armor spell All Protection in front of each square. Moreover, the small animals that transformed into brooches were restored to their original forms and then petrified. Now they were placed in front of the students to form a wall. Although Shaw was confident, he did not want to cause any casualties by accident, so he took safety measures for the students. Voldemort's killing curse was still very strong, and it was safer to have a life wall. Quirrell also noticed the weirdness of the hall at this time. He was a little panicked, secretly pinched the wand in his sleeve pocket, and said fiercely, "Sure, what do you want to do? Attack the professor? You will be expelled." Seeing that everything was ready, Shaw was too lazy to talk nonsense. With a wave of his hand, 5 gorgeous cards flew out of the ring, hovering above Shaw, dragging light flames and spinning. The wand in his hand quickly turned into a shining lightning sword, and slashed towards Quirrell. A 3-meter sword rainbow like a sky-breaking sword flew out of the sword and stabbed Quirrell. All the young wizards were stunned. They were still wondering about Shaw's strange arrangement, and then Shaw started to beat the professor. The young wizards had countless questions. Is it so lawless? The devil is already dissatisfied with the existing power. Is he going to formally conquer Hogwarts? Picking the weak ones first. A dozen little snakes who were almost going crazy thought that the chief was super cool, and they took out their wands and were ready to help. Stand still. Alice turned around and swept these fearless and easily excited teenagers with a wild and fierce look. This stopped their suicidal behavior. In the field, don't think that Quirrell is timid and stuttering all day long. That's just pretending. He is a man who dares to experience adventures all over the world and go into primeval forests. I don't know how many fights he has fought. If it weren't for the bug of Voldemort, he would be more than qualified to be the professor of defense against the dark arts. Armor to protect yourself. Armor to protect yourself. Quirrell drew out his wand, quickly estimated the power of the lightning sword energy, and quickly and hastily laid down 2 thick blue light armors. Bang! Bang! The lightning sword pierced the first iron armor with great momentum, and in the blue light fragments, it continued to pierce the second iron armor, just merging the two, without wasting any magic power. This is rich combat experience. Quirrell laid down a blue light shield. At this time, he knew that he must have been exposed, so he turned and ran towards the gate. If he was late, he would be beaten by the professors who came back, but the next moment, a blue water python poked its head down from the sky, with violent water splashes, and bit him with a ferocious mouth. Quirrell was furious, and directly fired multiple freezing spells and explosion spells. Quick freeze. Thunder explosion. Bang! The blue water python first froze into a lump at a very fast speed, and then was blown into pieces, splashing everywhere. The splashing ice fragments also scratched many young wizards in the distance, and the prefects were scared to put up shields quickly. Shaw narrowed his eyes slightly. Sure enough, the fighting power between wizards is incomparable. He summoned another anaconda from the card, which did not attack Quirrell, but just entangled him. Then he began to accumulate power, and the lightning sword in his hand made sword flowers, and the hunting clothes moved with the wind, which was very handsome and unrestrained. A huge purple electric net with jumping arcs and sparks was generated around and above Quirrell, with a posture of covering the sky and catching turtles in a jar. Damn it! Quillo cursed secretly when he saw this, and dodged the attack and snake coil of the blue giant python. He waved his magic wand fiercely. Hellfire! A black flame gushed out from the tip of his wand, which was the fiery flame curse. As soon as the fiery flame appeared, it quickly turned into a flaming giant snake with evil spirits. Voldemort did teach Quirrell something. The flaming giant snake raised its head and rushed towards the blue anaconda that blocked the way. The collision of the 2 giant pythons was spectacular, and even felt like an earthquake. For a moment, the floor shook, sparks burst, and water vapor rose, but the water python was obviously no match, and the water on its body was quickly melted. The fiendfire, which could absorb everything and burn, became even bigger, and it was extremely powerful and domineering. This frightened the surrounding young wizards and trembled, and the senior students were also a little scared. Senior, let's run. Go and call the professors, tell them to stop fighting. Is this the legendary fiendfire? Professor Quirrell is crazy. Is he going to destroy the hall? Alice and Draco looked determined, and they believed that the chief would definitely defeat Quirrell. Well, although I don't know why the chief wants to fight, that's not important. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao calmly looked at the fierce fire snake in the field. Since he dared to take action in the hall, he was naturally prepared. Unfortunately, although he could not end all curses, the electric net that condensed a large amount of thunder elements could suppress the fire. Thunder can overcome evil spirits, although it cannot fight against 100 like its natural enemy, making the fire afraid and escaping. The thunder element can offset the curse attribute in the fire. To eliminate the remaining single flame, it is the magic reserve that counts. Comparing magic reserves. Xiao'er is not afraid of anyone in a single duel under the legend. There are still 20 playing cards storing magic in the ring. After the 2 blue water pythons were eliminated by the fire snake, his snake-catching electric net was also ready to continue. Collect. Xiao'er stretched out his hand and clenched his fist fiercely. The huge purple net that reached the dome began to shrink rapidly, and the sense of oppression was extremely strong. As the body becomes smaller, the densely woven electric wires become more and more condensed, with purple energy flowing on them and arcs jumping, which is very gorgeous and dazzling. Z-la. Z, that when the electric net touches the flame snake that is screaming to the sky, a violent collision immediately breaks out. Boom, the giant snake tries to straighten its snake drive, but is slowly bent down by the pressure, and the fierce fire that constitutes the huge snake drive is also melting rapidly. The electric net at the impact point gathers a lot of magic power from the connected electric wires from all directions, and not only that, it also draws thunder elements from the air to join. The fierce fire snake is trapped and still fights, still fiercely and unwillingly attacking randomly, constantly attacking. The purple lightning net in all directions. The flames rise and the fire rolls between the flick and swing of the tail. When the fierce fire grows to a certain extent, if the controller is not strong enough, it will lose control of the spell. Grindelwald almost burned Paris with a fire, but it was also improperly controlled. In the end, it took hundreds of elite wizards to use End of All Curses to control it. Quirrell was also inconsolable at this moment. Although the giant fire snake above was attacking the power grid, he was also affected and was in a very embarrassing state. His clothes were tattered and he could only support the protection of End of All Curses, but Quirrell's resistance became more and more difficult. Seeing the fire snake getting smaller, the power grid was shrinking. You are really a waste. You can't even beat a first-year student. Give your body to me. Voldemort on the back of his head finally couldn't stand it anymore. If Quirrell's body was defeated, he would only be a residual soul and couldn't do much. Quirrell hesitated. If he gave his body to Voldemort at this juncture, the consequences can be imagined. His magic power and vitality would be drained in 9 out of 10 cases, but when he heard the last shrill whine of the fiend fire above his head, which turned into ashes, he knew that he had no choice. Then he relaxed his mind. Everyone in the field was watching eagerly. They didn't expect that Shaw's spell could restrain the fiend fire that could burn everything. Fred with squinted eyes shrank his neck. Hey, George, it turns out that the big devil used to play tricks on us. George with crooked mouth rolled his eyes. Yes, the big devil is mighty. I am the Vice-Dean's dog. A beautiful little eagle lady. Oh, Merlin's pudding. Shaw is so perverted. Sister, I like him so much. Harry's eyes were full of admiration. Is this Shaw's strength? It seems that I need to work harder. Alice and Draco were even more fanatical at this moment. Following such a leader, there is no need to worry about not achieving great things. Others had almost the same ideas. Shaw in the field was not as relaxed as they thought at the moment. Seeing that he was about to touch Quirrell's purple electric net, he was abnormally nervous. He knew that Voldemort was about to appear. Sure enough, the next moment, Quirrell seemed to have changed into a different person, and large amounts of black mist rose from Quirrell. A certain kind of extremely powerful energy field with binding force was formed, which stopped the purple electric net that had just shrunk rapidly. The electric net shone with dazzling brilliance, but still could not be stored. This was the power of legend, and Quirrell in the middle. His pale face was distorted for a while, as if he had drunk polyjuice. His skin was wriggling, bulging and shrinking. Gradually, he turned into a face with a pointed chin, a flat nose, and scarlet pupils, which was Voldemort, and his unique dark and evil aura immediately filled the entire hall. Voldemort twisted his head, reached out and threw away the scarf on his head, reached out and touched his bald head, and adapted to the body that did not belong to him. He immediately looked at Shaw on the other side of the electric net, with admiration and resentment flashing in his eyes, and said in a hoarse voice, "Sure, you have ruined the plan of the greatest Dark Lord. Since you are still a talent, kneel down and surrender to me, and I will spare your life." The whole audience was silent. At this time, no one realized that the person who came was Voldemort. After all, this Dark Lord had been dead for 11 years. It was just a surprise, what happened to Luo? And Shaw's words shocked everyone. Voldemort, Voldemort, you are a bug that can only hide in the dirty sewers. You dare to hide in Quirrell's body and become a remnant soul of cats and dogs. You are so arrogant that you want me to surrender, that after 2 seconds of silence, the little wizard screamed. Voldemort? Oh, no. Impossible, the mysterious man has been dead for a long time. Killed by Harry. But Quirrell's scene is really strange and evil. He looks very similar to the mysterious man. No, how can Quirrell be the Dark Lord? Oh. No. Harry's reaction at this moment was the biggest. He covered his forehead with severe pain and half knelt on the ground, shaking all over. Harry raised his head and looked at Voldemort in the field with red eyes. Hermione suppressed her curiosity. She came from the Muggle world, and her fear of the Dark Lord only stayed in the narration of others. Although he was frightened, he did not forget one of the tasks that Shaw had given him. He quickly raised the magic camera in his hand and took pictures of the scene. Afterwards, with the help of developing potion, it can be seen as a comic strip. Voldemort was almost furious. Shaw was so ungrateful that he not only destroyed his plan but also insulted him. You are looking for death, let the great Dark Lord teach you what power is now. After saying that, he casually raised the magic wand in his hand, and the magic power in Quirrell's body surged. The remaining fiend fire on the ground immediately revived and ignited spontaneously, as if it had been cast with an amplification spell. With a bang, a black fiendfire snake sprang out from the ground. Although this snake and Quirrell's fiendfire snake were both constructed by fiendfire, their power was very different. Voldemort's serpent, the serpent's fire was as black as ink, and the scales on the serpent were lifelike, like the red magic of magma flowing through it, mysterious and evil. As soon as the serpent appeared, it retracted its neck to briefly accumulate power, and then it shot towards the purple electric net above its head. Boom! The fierce impact made the already very solid electric net bulge a lot. Sparks of electricity exploded one after another, and the snake's hoarse roar continued. The serpent was extremely ferocious, and it kept deforming the electric net, but it could also draw energy from the air, the water element that the blue water python just emitted in the air, under Voldemort's control, became a lot of nutrients for the serpent, the foundation of the purple electric net. Those electric wires were constantly broken, but they were immediately repaired by a large amount of magic power. Shaw held the poker cards that stored magic power in his hands, constantly calling up magic power and absorbing elements from the world, and quickly repaired the purple electric net. He didn't dare to let Voldemort out, however. Shaw still oversimplified the legendary wizard's methods. Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Some of the young wizards at Hogwarts believed that the noseless Quirrell in the electric grid was really Voldemort. The battle between ordinary wizards was not that dazzling, just like shooting at each other with lasers. The earth-shaking battle only existed between top wizards. Voldemort and Dumbledore never had a direct battle in public, but they must have fought in private. The older generation may know how magnificent the battle between legendary wizards is, but it was the first time for the young people to see the battle between top wizards under the legend. Naturally, they thought it was a legendary battle. They were surprised that Voldemort was not dead and his powerful and evil magic. They were even more surprised that Shaw, a first-year student, dared to fight hard. Even 50-50. Chief, you are mighty. That I don't know which little snake shouted this sentence first. Well, the passionate atmosphere quickly filled the air. The chief is mighty. The vice dean is mighty. Little brother Shaw is mighty. Shore didn't react to the cheers, but what the hell was that little brother? He almost stumbled, and Voldemort in the field felt ashamed of being watched by a monkey. His snake face became more and more twisted and hideous. He was both shocked and angry. You all deserve to die. You all deserve to die. He used to just see that Shaw had a great talent for magic, and wanted to take him as his loyal servant like Regulus, but now, Shaw not only destroyed his resurrection plan, but also forced him to reveal himself. Moreover, Shaw's magic talent was too evil, which was beyond his imagination. A selfish superior like Voldemort could allow powerful subordinates, such as Snape, but would not allow subordinates who were better than himself. Several reasons added together, so, even if Quirrell's life was given here today, Shaw must die too. Voldemort raised his pale left hand, and the giant fire snake broke into two halves. One half exploded directly, and with a fierce impact, it forced the electric nets in all directions back several meters. The other half began to condense rapidly, shrank a lot, and turned into a dark flame giant gun. The giant gun was like the spear of Longinus that stabbed Jesus to death. With unparalleled sharpness, it stabbed the electric net in the direction of Shaw. This was not over yet. Voldemort shook the magic wand in his right hand forward. Avada Kedavra, that a dazzling green light as thick as a thigh appeared at the tip of the wand, instantly dyeing the space in the electric net green. The power of this spell is similar to the pillar of light that Voldemort shot at the Hogwarts shield in anger in the original book. The killing curse followed the giant flame gun, and it was a fatal killing move at first glance. Quirrell's body was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the howling of Quirrell's soul could be heard faintly. As for Shaw, when the electric net was repelled, he had a bad feeling, and immediately inputted magic power desperately to strengthen the protection and convergence of the electric net. But when he saw the green scene behind the giant gun and the green scene behind it, his scalp was numb. The intensity of this battle was somewhat beyond his expectations. The Dark Lord is indeed the Dark Lord. Even if he is disabled, if you dare to despise him, you will only seek death. He gritted his teeth and stamped his feet. Merlin, let's fight. Shaw gave up the blessing of the electric net and let the remaining electric net serve as a protection for the students around him. He quickly summoned 5 playing cards from the ring and shot out a series of powerful, Tuzhong long purple-black electric rainbows. At this time, the giant flame gun had already hit the front electric net. The electric net had just consumed a huge amount of energy and had no more energy for defense. The impact point kept flashing, and after exploding countless arcs, the giant gun consumed half of its energy and pierced the electric grid, continuing to stab towards Shaw. 5 purple-black electric rainbows also collided with the giant gun, and the shock wave and heat wave of the violent collision blew the people around it to the ground. The little wizards crawling on the ground were dumbfounded. There was even a more powerful move. Is this still a wizard? The 5 purple-black electric rainbows consumed the giant flame gun, and like a relay, they collided with the sky-high green light that was still connected to Voldemort's wand. Zee-la, Zee-la. Zee-la, Zee-la. At this time, there was no huge momentum in the battle of moves, only the harsh sound of rapid melting. Countless plasma-like lights suddenly appeared in the center, and the air was distorted by the high temperature. The electric rainbow was also shrinking visibly. Shaw's eyes condensed. He spent a week and a lot of magic to build his 5 electric rainbows. He almost killed the giant spider, but he didn't expect it to melt so quickly. If he didn't kill Voldemort this time, he would lose a lot. Shaw took a closer look at Voldemort in the distance and felt a little satisfied, because the opponent was not in good condition either. At this time now is the time to compete in perseverance and family background. Shaw was distracted, maintaining the electric rainbow while swinging the sword in his hand. He moved his feet and rushed towards Voldemort from the side, and a layer of purple shield began to appear around him. Before, he wanted to use the water plus electricity method to deal with Voldemort, but when Voldemort appeared, the water element in the air completely became Voldemort's slave. Shaw was so scared that he didn't even dare to summon the water python. Now he is very glad that he didn't upgrade the water prison technique at the beginning. The 6th level water prison is strong, but it is not as strong as Voldemort's legendary realm exclusive control of water elements. Although he is a residual soul, his realm and understanding of magic are still there. And now, Shaw charged just because he saw that Quirrell's body was about to run out of energy. At this time, he naturally had to maximize the results. After beheading Voldemort with a sword, his head flew high. Is there any better background to highlight his invincibility than this? Is there any better way to increase prestige than this? Well, it's definitely not for show. It's also not what one wishes. Voldemort, that at this time, a shrill and mournful voice suddenly came from the stairs not far behind Shaw. Shaw was speechless. He knew this voice very well. He couldn't help but complain that Snape didn't stay on the 4th floor. Why did he come to join in the fun at this time? Shaw's mind raced, and he felt that Snape should not be exposed now, so he stretched out his hand and threw it back. 3 gorgeous playing cards jumped out of the ring, dragging red and blue flames and shooting backwards. 3 blue water pythons flew out while the playing cards were still in the air. the water prison may not work against Voldemort, but it is more than enough to stop Snape. God's sword has no shadow. The sound of swords whistling and water pythons whistling came from behind, and the fight started non-stop. Shaw didn't care about that. His body passed through the electric net, and he saw Voldemort's withered face, and he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Voldemort was furious, and he shouted at Shaw, who ran over. "Shameless Shaw, you deserve to die. You rebel, how could Regulus have such a rebellious son like you?" Shaw didn't want to talk to Voldemort anymore, holding the sword with both hands, jumped lightly, and slashed at Voldemort fiercely. The lightning sword burst out with a stronger magic, and the sharpness reached its peak. Voldemort frowned. If Quirrell's body was not too useless, he would not be so frustrated. While maintaining the killing spell and the lightning rainbow to consume, the other hand swung casually, casting a spell without sound and wand, and a dark green death shield appeared beside him. Clang! The lightning sword slashed on the diamond-shaped death shield, and the collision between the sword and the shield made the green and purple light intertwined and shone. The turbulent wind blew up Xiao Er's hair and made the hem of his clothes rustle. Xiao Er took a half-step back, his eyes were fierce, and he continued to pour magic power into the somewhat dim lightning sword. Xiao Er continued to swing his sword and cut, and dense spider web cracks began to appear on the surface of the death shield. After 3 or 2 more hits, with a click, the shield broke. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Voldemort gritted his teeth. When had he, the Dark Lord, ever suffered such an injustice? He waved his wand fiercely, and the green light of the killing curse pulled the 5 lightning rainbows that were about to dissipate to the side, and directly exploded the lightning rainbows, the electric net, and the green light into a ball. This is combat experience. Voldemort attacked with no time, and squeezed out all the last bit of magic power in Quirrell's body. The reason why Voldemort likes to use the killing curse is that it is convenient for killing, and it is also disdain for ants. But this does not mean that the Dark Lord is really stupid enough to use Avatar to kill. A large amount of black air surged out of his body again, quickly wrapping him up. This is an application of the water element. After breaking the shield, Shaw was overjoyed and continued to work hard. He chopped the water mist with a sword. After the water mist was cut open, there was no touch. As a result, he chopped it in vain. And Voldemort's complicated words came from above. "Shameless Shaw, you are indeed a genius, but you don't know what real power is. I'll give you one last chance, surrender to me. I'll give you eternal life." Shaw looked up and saw Voldemort floating in the sky wrapped in rolling black fog. Behind him, a dense black light was shrinking, and a palpitating feeling filled Shaw's heart. This must be Voldemort's big move. Shaw knew that villains die because of talking too much, and he didn't respond to Voldemort's words of persuasion or delay. "Old dog. Don't think you are the only one who can fly." Shaw cursed, and as the magic power in his body surged, a protective layer like an electric scab condensed on the surface of his body. Behind him, a halo appeared. The halo was in the shape of a pentagram, and the purple-gold halo reflected outward, which was very ethereal. As the halo slowly turned, it dragged Shaw into the air. The lightning sword in his hand also changed its form, turning into a purple halberd of 10 feet long. 3 magic poker cards flew out and injected magic power for free. Voldemort cursed and said he didn't know what was good for him. The black fog spread outward, and bursts of shrill sounds came faintly. This is considered the domain exclusive to Voldemort after his legend. Of course, it is unknown whether the magic world calls it that. Shaw held the position of the magic wand in the middle of the halberd, and under the drive of the lightning floating ring, he stabbed Voldemort forward and instantly killed into the black fog. For a while, the black fog rolled up and down, surging, and the aftermath of the explosion radiated to the surroundings, and the power grid was quickly destroyed. Although Alice was worried, she quickly scolded and ordered. "Why are you all standing there? Build a shield." Those stunned senior students hurriedly chanted the spell in panic. "All protected." And others quickly injected magic to help defend, and the shock wave quickly hit the shield, which flickered for a while. In the field, purple and green intertwined, and the light was so bright that all the viewers could not open their eyes. Only the lightning could be vaguely seen melting the black fog, and the black fog swallowed the purple thunder. Shaw's shouting and Voldemort's roaring were heard continuously. The students were all worried, and many students were in tears. Damn it. Merlin bless, the chief will definitely win. Voldemort must die. Mom, I want to find my mom. It's over, if Shaw loses, will we die too? Harry had recovered at this moment, but he gritted his teeth. If Neville hadn't stopped him, he would have rushed into the battle circle to fight Voldemort and avenge his parents. The most complicated one was Draco. Since he was a child, his father had taught him how powerful the Dark Lord was. Now that he saw that Shaw could fight the Dark Lord on equal terms, he was both excited and, of course, there was a small group of people who were really excited at this moment. Pansy. Shaw will definitely die under the wand of the great Dark Lord. Marcus, ahem, this, let's talk about it later, Gloria, hee, Dad will be so happy to know that the Dark Lord has returned. Hey, where is my stupid brother? Other anti-sure little snakes are already fantasizing about whether they should kneel down to express their loyalty or crawl on their stomachs to lick the toes after the Dark Lord wins. In the distance, Snape's eyes were red. He had killed 3 blue anacondas, but he also calmed down. At this moment, even if he wanted to help, he couldn't do it. The energy field was too intense and it couldn't distinguish between friend and foe. He could only watch Shaw fight for his life, clenching his fists and digging his nails into his palms to relieve the pain in his heart. Lily, I'm useless. The enemy is right in front of me, but I can't avenge you. I have to watch a little guy. Bang! A deafening sound came from the center of the battlefield, and then the black fog was blown away by the wind. Gradually, a figure holding a halberd in one hand emerged and stood there. The figure was not tall, and even a little thin. The hunting clothes on his body were even a little tattered, but it gave people a feeling of standing tall, and Voldemort, that is, Quirrell's body, had been beheaded, and a head was thrown high in the sky, added a murderous footnote to Shaw's invincible momentum. Without waiting for the stunned people to cheer, Voldemort's residual soul quickly poured out from Quirrell's headless body, and the dark soul gathered in the sky to form a flat snake face. Voldemort's eyes were filled with hatred. Shameless Shaw, you wait for me, I will be back. After saying that, he rolled up his soul and rolled out of the door with endless humiliation. Shaw looked at him coldly, with disdain on his face. Next time, he would definitely not fight so hard, and he would almost bankrupt himself. In the hall, the silence was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop, and no one spoke for a long time. After all, the Dark Lord was defeated, but his soul is still alive. His words, I will come back, it was like a sword of Damocles hanging overhead, making people feel uneasy. Alice was stunned for a while, but she didn't care. If Shaw could kill Voldemort once, there would be another time. She immediately raised her wand and shouted. Voldemort is defeated and fled, the chief is invincible. Shaw's die-hard supporters were the first to agree, and they all pointed their wands to the sky. The chief is invincible. The chief is invincible. This time, it was not only the students of the Snake Academy who shouted like this, but also many young wizards from other academies followed suit, and they also shouted the chief. Shaw was taking a breath, and when he heard the movement behind him, he was about to turn around handsomely, and the next moment. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the task, snatched the Savior's reputation, first ring. Reward 10,000 level 1 faith points, 1 legendary point. Ding! Release the task, snatched the Savior's reputation, second ring, open the Chamber of Secrets in the second year and prove that you are an upright Slytherin heir. Task reward, 200 level 2 faith points, 1 legendary point. Shaw's mouth twitched. After completing the first ring, the reward was good, which made him happy, but what is the second ring? The content of the task is still expected, but the word upright, tut, Shaw shook his head slightly, forget it, and slowly figure it out in the future. He wanted to add legendary points to the lightning sword. This actual combat proved that too many tricks are really not as good as one skill for 10,000 years. Ding! Failed to add points. The 7th level spell requires 2 legendary points, and the subsequent additions accumulate 1 legendary point. Fuck! Shaw was dumbfounded. Isn't this a joke? It means that if you want to upgrade a skill from level 5 to level 10, you need at least 15 legendary points. But think about it, it seems to be okay. Level 6 skills are already considered to be in the category of half-step legendary spells. By analogy, level 7 is legendary, level 8 is mid-level legendary, and level 9 is high-level legendary. Level 10, maybe it's god level. Shaw is also thinking about it, not sure if it's accurate, but he didn't have time to think. A group of students gathered behind him and immediately surrounded Shaw. They were ready to flatter him. "Chief, you are mighty and domineering, the best in Britain. Chief, you are so cool. Deputy Dean, you actually beat the mysterious man." Snape, with a complicated look, was also ready to say something. Shaw didn't dislike these, but he had an important thing to do now. He turned around and gave instructions to Alice, who was full of enthusiasm. "Organize people to repair the hall. The Halloween dinner cannot be delayed." After saying that, he shook the halberd in his hand, turned it back into a wand, and ran out. He had to go see how Theodore was doing.